Imagine the amount of stress that would be lifted off of your shoulders if you didn't have to pay for your college education and you wouldn't graduate with the burden of debt on your shoulders. There's an article on the University of the People website that goes into detail about why college should be free. Now, most students have much trouble getting through college alone simply based on the fact that they're going to end up in severe debt. Even as a student myself, I have to find it pretty tough to focus on my schoolwork because I'm constantly thinking of how I'm going to pay off my education. Sometimes I think it's worth it, sometimes I think it's not worth it. I know I'm not the only one with this issue, but if debt didn't go shoulder to shoulder with an education, then most of us wouldn't have nearly as much stress. Other than stress though, I believe that if college were free, there would be a much higher success rate. In the article, 5 Reasons Why College Should Be Free, on the University of the People website, it states, when students aren't worried about money, they can focus better on their studies. And it also states, this added stress can negatively impact our focus during the time they are supposed to be learning. And I find these 2 quotes very relatable. Now, if you didn't have to pay for a piece of paper that will eventually get you a better job in the future, then the success rates would go up, would they not? Now, of course, there's some questions that you can ask when it comes to this topic, such as how would schools get funding, or would students be the ones paying for their dorm rooms or their food? Now, before I answer these questions, I'd like to make something clear. When I mean free college, I mainly mean free tuition, because that's what most drastically affects someone's life in the future. So then the answer to these questions are simple. Schools can get funded by the government, and students should only have to pay for their food and their housing. Although there are many factors and questions that come into play, the thought of not having to pay for college is already enough to relieve some stress off of our shoulders. I'm sure that we can all agree that the success rates of young adults would definitely go up. Those in low-income households would get into college just as easy as the wealthy, and parents wouldn't have to live paycheck to paycheck trying to help their child succeed. This constant circle of stress and anxiety does have its good outcomes though. There are many people who graduate college and go off to get their dream job. But why have any other stress on your shoulders other than turning in a book of assignments or you're studying for 6 other tests? Now let's look at some of the examples that the article gives us. Like the title, this article gives us 5 reasons why college should be free. The first one explains how it improves society by stating, when more people have access to college education, the number of employable people for higher skilled jobs increases. This means that more people would join the workforce, which would help lessen the wealth gap between the upper, the middle, and the lower class. The author goes on to talk about the other 4 reasons, which are widened workforce, a boosted economy, an increase in equality, and more focus. All of these examples give great reasoning and understanding of how college education potentially could change the U.S. and the entire world in a positive way. Now, there are 2 sides to this speculation of why college tuition should be free. One side is saying that college should be free, and the other saying that it shouldn't. But personally, I come from a low-income household, so the thought of having no debt after college is basically paradise to me. And I know that there are many others who can agree to a certain extent. So again, if we didn't have to pay for our education, the amount of stress would be lowered, and this world of constant anxiety and worry would nearly vanish. Maybe someday in the future, our grandchildren or great-grandchildren wouldn't have to deal with these struggles. But we as a people, if we would want that, we'd have to make an action now. Not having to pay for things or seeing a free sign on a window brings great peace and great happiness, does it not? So why don't we put that sign on somewhere where it can greatly affect our lives? On the face of college itself and student education.